off to the left, there should have been some jagged peaks as you go over the top of those mountains, just as you're going across the Yukon.
It had like a little bit of turbulence that like picked the plane up, and we had our moose call sitting on like the dash of the on the plane there, and it everything kind of went up for a second, and then all kind of came back down. So that was pretty fun.
I was worried for a second when we got bounced the first time, more for Jack, and I turned around and seen stuff floating and him smiling, so I was like, oh, okay, he can hack this, he's all right. And he looked at me and we thought, ooh, we might have bit off a little bit much here. Because it was just raining so dang hard, wearing rain gear, humping the stuff in the rain and in the tussocks and in the trenches and all that stuff. And then
whole reality of the situation kind of set in.
Yeah, we kind of thought for a second, gave each other a look like, hey, they're pull up the pants tight and cinch down the suspenders here, and let's get over to the river. Now this thing's coming into camp. Jack's still asleep. All I could think of is some angry animal this big tripping up on lions from tents and stuff, and my son's still in bed, so now I'm kind of whispering to him. And then that's when this thing comes into camp and he hears him shaking.
Hey everybody, I am Troy Sessions, and this is John and Jack Kelly. They did a hunt with us at Trophy Ridge a couple years ago. Was it last year that you guys did that?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah, and you guys rocked it. You harvested some really big bulls.
That was my first time up in Alaska, so getting up in the plane and seeing just the expanse of the wilderness up there, that was a pretty big deal for me. But my dad obviously aviation background and history, so getting in a plane for him, that was probably not as exciting as it was again. But nonetheless, getting a plane to go out for a hunt, it was probably a first for him as well. So that was awesome. Once we got up in the plane, it really all kind of sank in, and the hunt really started then and there.
Mr. Kelly, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Jack. You're a naval aviator, is that correct?
Flight officer in Tomcats and Super Hornets. So biggest thing was I wanted to get Jack in the front seat, but the weight and balance wouldn't allow it because I'm rocking 220 and he's about 130 sopping wet. And so we smashed him in the back and he was smiling the whole way.
I've done that with my wife and two golden retrievers. It's nice when they're light enough and you can get them smashed in there, and it's still going to help isn't going to hinder the center of gravity on those planes. What'd you think about flying over those mountains? Isn't that almost take it? I don't know if you went through the exact pass that I usually do when I'm flying, but I'm sure you were pretty close to it. But they're off to the left. There should have been some jagged peaks as you go over the top of those mountains, just as you're going across the Yukon River.
Yeah, I think when we were going over those, we had like a little bit of turbulence that like picked the plane up, and we had our moose call sitting on like the dash of on the plane there, and it everything all kind of went up for a second, and then all kind of came back down. So that was pretty fun. But incredible views from there.
I was worried for a second when we got bounced the first time, more for Jack, and I turned around and seen stuff floating and him smiling, so I was like, oh, okay, he can hack this, he's all right. Because it's different than the small one.
It is. And as a bush pilot myself for nearly 30 years, my hands get sweaty, I get sweaty, and after a couple hours of flying and turbulence in the mountains, which is the norm in Alaska, you can really get all worked up and man, when I land sometimes after about 2 hours of flying, I'm like ready for a nap. It's such a mental drain.
I can see that.
Was it like that with you, John, when you're in the Tomcats?
As your aviation background, everything's training, so they kind of train it out of you. You're just so focused on the task that it doesn't hit you until you get back on the ground or on the ship, and then you sit down and take your gear off, and then you're kind of like have that first cup of coffee, and then you kind of unload.
Oh man, I'm amazed that I'm not amazed. I'm really happy you brought that up, because that is exactly how it is to be a pilot in Alaska, or in this case, anywhere in the world. It's not until you get back home that you feel so drained. It's when you're in the moment, you are so focused on are my instruments telling me what I need to know right at this moment? Is my carb heat on? Is my RPMs properly? You know, am I gaining altitude, lowering altitude? And then you get rocked with some turbulence that generates off the top of them mountains that you cannot see it coming quite often, unless you know how wind patterns work. You know what clouds look like when they're rotors, when they're lenticulars, with the wind shear that's involved, and normally how much wind that means. When you see those clouds, those lenticulars, you know, you can equate a speed to why that cloud is it looks like a lens.
Yeah, it was, you know, and you'll hear me say this over and over: training and planning, you know. So you were able to, with the good training and the good planning, you just eliminate so many of the surprises, or I'm not sure's, or I don't knows, you know, that even us, the first time we came through the pass, we're like, oh, that's the lake we're going to, and that's the river there. You know, and it, as you know, it takes away so much of the thought process, and not necessarily the worrying, but the, oh, heck, what's that? Oh, I know what that is. I saw that on Google Maps, Google Earth, you know. So it just eliminates all that extra stuff, you know.
And that's the training that we provide, that we give you guys, and you land on, you know, that's the lake that you're going on, because I've showed it to you on Google Earth quite often. I've showed it to other folks in other locations, or from my own actual footage. So when you did your pack job to the river, that was about 600 yards, and you know, you guys had how much weight with you, and how long did that take you?
Obviously, Jack and I, I'd say a little bit above average and savvy. Felt good with the plan. I measured 1,000 yards, by the way. So if it's 600, you can switch it. So okay. Mistake number one: excitable dad hops right out of the plane, and we are not on solid ground yet.
Oh my!
And put a foot down off the pontoon and right up to my waist, and grab a hold of some moss. And thank goodness, there's a plug for chest waders. Didn't get to the top at all. Had my belt on and just yanked myself up and went, that is not solid there.
For all of you that isn't, you know, savvy with hunting in Alaska's marsh systems, there's a mat that's on the side of these lakes quite often around, and it's a solid mat, and you can stand on it, but it moves like quicksand, and you can actually break through that mat and probably disappear completely out of sight. Isn't that about what you were experiencing?
Yeah, who knows what the depth of that water is alongside those lakes. You know, it seemed like it was more than 5 or 6 foot, or what would have been over, or you know, over your head. So, you know, if you step in the wrong hole there, that was I had a lot of fun kind of seeing that, because that was my first time ever seeing big grass mats sitting on water, let alone, you know, stepping off of a float plane in the middle of Alaska, and then like getting to step on a big, you know, wild water bed or something. So that was, you know, first initial thought was holy shit. It was like, oh, Dad's getting wet within the first 30 seconds out here.
And it's raining, sleeting sideways. You know, we're getting a full meal deal. We go in. So that first trip in, Jack and I in the survival gear, tent, couple days of food, first aid kit, fire kit, the essentials. And then even with all the conversations and even with all the video watching, still didn't prepare for the 1,000-yard hike to the river, and, you know, stepping on the tundra, you know, and until you see it and see the deep holes and figure out where to step. It probably took us 2 trips back and forth, but we got everything. We made it right at dark, probably. right to the riverbed, found a good spot, kind of buried in the trees. And be honest, when we were hiking across, I looked at him and he looked at me, and we thought, whew, we might have bit off a little bit much here. Because it was just raining so dang hard, wearing rain gear, humping the stuff in the rain and in the tussocks and in the trenches and all that stuff. And then
whole reality of the situation kind of set in.
Yeah, we kind of thought for a second, gave each other a look like, hey, they're pull up the pants tight and cinch down suspenders here, and let's get over to the river. And what was cool, once again, back to the planning and the training, we knew we were going to set up a floorless shelter and have a good fire. And within a half hour of being pretty worn out, we're warm, drying out in the tent, happier than all heck, eating hot food, and like, well, that probably was going to be the worst, and no problem. So the little titanium tent or titanium stove and the ability to get that cranked up pretty quickly, and we're drier and happier than all heck. And then it rained for 2-3 days straight.
Hey there, friends. Meet Alaskan Hunter Jack. We're excited to share that the 60-inch club channel is thriving with over 1,760,000 views each month. Our YouTube channel alone brings in 355,855 views and over 5,600 hours of watch time. On Facebook, we're reaching over 342,000 views and 5,500 watch hours every month. And on Instagram, we touch the hearts of more than 1.1 million people every 28 days with around 976,000 views monthly. As an added bonus, we also go live for free Alaska hunting training. Welcome to your friendly podcast and training headquarters for Alaska hunting, the 60-inch club. We can't wait for you to join us.
That's one of the things I try to get across to people, and I realize it more and more that I need to do a better job at that. But, for hunting in Alaska most of my life, that on Dall sheep hunts and grizzly bear hunts above the Arctic Circle, that when it feels daunting and overwhelming, just realize this isn't a race. And you want to, in your mind, you want to be breaking this hunt down in segments, and you want to complete your hunt in like, we'll just say 4 segments. 1, you land, you pack to the river. And 2, you float to location. We're going to use your guys' scenario for this one. I do it for Dall sheep as well. Most of my hunts are really hard. They've always been hard for me. I have friends that kick me in the hind end, like, Troy, what'd you do to us here? And that's just what you got to do to get to where the big bulls are at.
Yeah, right.
Even Butch Whiting, a cryptech, would tell me, he goes, we wouldn't have been able to have hunted this area. And this podcast is coming out here this week. He said, we wouldn't have been able to have hunted this area if you guys didn't have the skills to land those planes in this short location. And he's right. And the same goes with your fitness level, and the same goes with many different facets of your hunt. But break it down into, acquisitionable segments that you can absorb. And when times get tough, just take a moment and realize it's not a race. Put up camp, get a fire going. That's the biggest thing you can do. Get a fire going, or get some heat going inside that tent, which is even really big. So when you have a tent, bring one that's got what John and Jack had here, where you got heat inside the tent. It's a big deal. Have some, have a cup of coffee, some hot chocolate, whatever. And then just settle into the moment, be present in the moment, and just relax, and then realize tomorrow's a new day. Is that about right?
Yeah,
that's spot on. Yeah, that kind of hunting, I don't think it's possible to do without a stove. Without being able to get dry and be able to, like you said, step into a warm place and have your hot chocolate or your tea or whatnot, and take that second to take a step back and really look around and soak it in, and that just helps further break everything down in segments. Because you get cold and you get wet, and then you get all rushed. That'll just lead to more mistakes and more errors, and being out there, it's something you really can't afford to do.
I'm happy that you made it to the river, and now what are you thinking now? You're at the river. This is cool. We're on the water system. Now what are you? Yeah. So what are you thinking now?
Well, the first was So as you know, I think one of the wettest, maybe spring summers on record for maybe top 10% up there that year, and
Mm-hmm.
she was chocolate and high, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh
that river was huge. It was by the time, by the day we got in there and the day we left, it was like being on two different rivers. That
Mm-hmm.
first
yes,
day, that river was roaring. It was high. It was chocolate out, and I mean, it was overspilling the banks. It's pretty
Mm-hmm.
intimidating to first take a look at.
we
Yeah.
knowing it was pretty chocolatey, we felt good knowing that in a day or two it was going to go down. It was that milky and that, and then it took us 2 more days to get the rest of our gear in. So we kind of stayed there, just making wood, eating, and shelling back and forth. What I think 2 more trips, Jack, 4 more
Yep.
trips in 2 days until we got all of our stuff in there, and then on the evening of the morning of the third day, then river went down to like what you envision in the picture, and then loaded up the rafts. You know, rafts were awesome. Blew up easy, handled all the gear, and then took the rafts then down around the corner and got to camp. And we're setting up the camp, and there's moose tracks everywhere. So we're like, yeah, this, So we went then into being quiet mode, because we knew we didn't want to be clanging any metal, not making any unnecessary noises, and kind of started to hunt.
Yeah, for all you listening in, if you're going to make any noise that's going to be not the typical noises that moose or lists are going to be hearing, like clanging pans or anything like that. You want to do that during the middle of the day or while you're in your travels. But typically, once you get into camp, it's all about, you don't talk real loud. It's not whispering or just not talking loud, and you're just kind of having normal conversations, and you're careful not clanging your pans when you're walking around. But if you were to pick up a big branch and beat it over a log, that's completely natural.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make as much noise doing that as you want, or thrash in the brush, which is what moose do. They do both those things. I've even taken my boots and kicked the sod apart because I was going to put my tent down right there, and to a nice flat area, and there was this big sod in the way. I kicked it out of the way and kicked the next one out. Next thing I knew, I called in a bull. It happens.
Believe it.
So
I believe.
so you had a quiet camp, no chainsaws, no motors running, and you're on location, and you've seen that location from the videos that we provided you. So you knew where you were at. I mean, it's like you've already been there before, right?
Exactly, and that was another huge thing, taking out the mystery. Like we knew our daily from the training.
First thing in the morning, I could be real quiet, don't have to light a fire, and I just turn on that peak stove and I heat up my coffee. The peak stoves have a lot smaller canisters. They're better for compactability in your backpack, which is the name of the game here, folks, is lightweight gear to fit into that plane so you can be more comfortable out there in camp. The lighter it is, the more compactable it is, the more of it you can bring and fit inside the plane.
We knew our daily plan already, and so we got camp set up that evening. We just set up a tarp in the tent, made a little wood with a handsaw, and then got up next morning and started it and got into the schedule like you explained in the training. And can't remember if we talked about it, but I had it in my mind that I was going to have 2 different calling stations, one about 50 yards upriver and one about 50 yards downriver from the camp, just because of the terrain. And then we started that morning. As soon as it was shooting light, I walked 50 yards upriver and did a little raking with the elk scapular we brought in there with us from Colorado. And then I did 3 I did everything. We did everything exactly the same every morning. Went upriver, 3 cow calls in 3 different directions to bounce it off of everything, upriver, downriver, and then back in the valley behind us. And then went downriver, 50 yards, and did the same thing, and then stopped. Came back to camp, made some coffee, then wash, rinse, repeated that every hour until about 10:30, and then we fished. And then after doing that the first time, that's when it kind of sunk in. Like, well, we're really into it. We even moose hunting here in Colorado, we never heard a cow screaming out in the middle of nowhere. And the second day we're humping our gear to the river, one lets loose, and we both stopped in our tracks. It sounded like some Yeti, Bigfoot screaming kind of thing at first until it stopped, and then we're like, okay, that's what that was. And we both looked at each other and laughed and went, that's cow moose, but louder and all heck.
Now it's way louder and way longer than all the moose hunting videos you've ever seen. Even my training, I don't have enough breath in my lungs to make a cow call like a normal moose will do. Correct?
Right. Yeah.
I want to step back just a minute. I don't know of anybody in the world that offers a training program like mine, to where I show you physical footage of me being there, and you know where you're at. Yeah. You know of anybody?
No, and that's kind of like, that was like my plug of mentor, and the whole reason guys come to my elk camp is because we hunted out of the same place for 15 years, and you got all that intel. That's what your training was able to provide us. It was like 10 years in the same camp on the same riverbed. Animal movement, time of day, all that stuff. So once again, through your training, eliminating so much of the unknown, and quite frankly too, turning a bunch of elk hunters into moose hunters, because as you know, it's completely different. And we had to get it in our heads that we're not listening to screaming bulls and chasing things. This is the long game, the long time type of thing. And you better get that in your head, sit down. That was a little bit of twist for us.
Yeah. The longer I get into helping people become successful in hunting moose in Alaska and anything in Alaska, it comes up again and again and again. The training that you get from me and the intelligence that I can provide is life learned. And what you guys are doing is you're getting into a program where you are bridging time. And time is money. Time is also success. And when you can take, we'll just say 20 years of my time at this location, and then of course the knowledge of the moose and the bulls that I've harvested over 20 years, and actually it's 30 years, but on this location, 20, and condense that down into like 4 to 5 hours of classes of actual footage and then training. I mean, you have condensed 20 years into about 5 hours of training or training,
You're right.
Correct?
Yeah.
And that's huge. I mean, if I could teach someone how to make $100,000 in a week instead of a year, and you can learn that in 5 hours, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And the same with success and being a hunter. You don't have to come to Alaska 10 different times to be 100% successful with giant moose like you guys got. You did it on the first trip.
Yeah. The key to sticking to the plan. I tell Jack all the time, we're in the business of Jack and in the business of John. And we'd like to hunt, and kind of make every decision off of that. But the training and bridging that gap, and the planning, the results speak for themselves. Simple as that.
How nice was it to have your son with you on this hunt?
Man, I'm spoiled, I'm humble, thankful, grateful every time we can get in the woods together. Our big trips every year is July and September. We go up in the flat tops for a big lake trip in September and July.
Wow.
and that's where we do a lot of our gear testing, so here's a plug for that. And test your gear, do some camping trips. We essentially set up moose camp in July up in the flat tops and tested all of our gear 2 years prior to actually using it. So,
Very smart.
Yeah, using the gear, knowing how to start a fire in wet conditions, knowing what we didn't like and liked, what sleeping pad, what small cot, but to be able to do it, with your best buddy, there ain't nothing better than that. Any father and son will agree to that,
Absolutely. Looking at some of the pictures and the videos that you sent to me and the many that went viral, is you called those moose right to your tent.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's so the funny story about the first bull is, I was using my little Alaska vacation to sleep in a little bit. Dad had the first shot on the bull. So
well,
naturally,
you know what? That's good to talk about, Jack.
Naturally, he was getting up first every morning and starting the fire and making the first few calls. And I actually woke up to the sound of that bull grunting and raking a tree 10, 15 yards outside of camp.
Wow.
And only reason why I knew it was a bull, or I heard the sound, and I was like, my first thought waking up was like, oh yeah, whatever Dad's doing different raking there is like that sounds completely different and completely better. And then I've been around horses and cattle all my life, and if you ever hear a big animal shake his shoulders or shake the water off his shoulders, it's a very distinct sound that only an animal of huge size can make. And I hear him shake off all this water, and then he grunts again, and then that's when my eyes should open. I was like, holy crap, that's moose right outside of tent, right outside of the tent. And and then I kind of roll over, and he hears me moving around now too, and so he's talking to me through the tent. He's like, hey, I need you to get out here. He doesn't have four on the brows, so I need you to help me judge him. He's right outside the tent, and so I got out real slow and quiet, and that's when I started taking probably the most infamous video of the entire trip is the first video of me coming out of the tent, and I pick the camera up, and there he is walking in between. You can see 110 on the side, 110 on the other side, and he's right on the other side of them through these little trees where we would go stand out and just watch the river and drink coffee, and he was standing right there. And it took us a little while to make sure we were confident in judging him before we end up taking the shot. But that was, to do that with your dad and to wake up to that, that's, I don't know what else is going to beat that in life, but I'm sure excited to see
that's pretty epic.
What compares to it.
So something to get us even to that point. So 4 days straight of executing the plan and the training. Okay, 4 days of going upriver, calling at first light, going downriver, calling, coming back, having a cup of coffee, waiting about 45 minutes for an hour, doing the same thing again until 10:30 in the morning. Then we'd fish for an hour. Then we'd get up high and glass till about 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Up on the
then
ridge?
Come back down to camp. Yep. Then back down to camp and then execute the same calling thing. So 4 days straight we did that. And we were already happier than heck, but we knew we were in the long haul here, and we talked about it. And we said, hey, look, we're into day 4 here. We're committed to here. Pretty dang happy what we've seen so far. If we get one, we're going to be pretty dang blessed and happy. And then an hour after we seen that, we probably seen the cow that was making all the noise in that valley swim across the river.
Wow.
And then the next morning, the first cold snap, woke up to the dew and the tents frozen and everything, and did one set of calls and came back to camp and made the coffee. And Troy, there was it's in a lot of the pictures, there's still an aspen or birch hanging in the river that's making a glump glump. And it was annoying as heck because it sounds pretty dang close to what it should be sounding like, coming from
like a
the
moose.
bull grunt. And I came back then that 5th morning and realized that, oh, there's a moose coming. And that's not the tree in the woods. And can't believe how quiet he came through the woods on the other side of the river. Like I grabbed my rifle and got next to a tree and just sat down there. Jack's still sleeping in the tent still. I haven't even made the first coffee yet. And it's solidly in the shooting light. And I'm thinking, man, I should be able to see this thing coming through the woods. Not even. Like a ghost. He just appears on the opposite riverbank, hops right into the water, swims right across, Troy, and makes landfall within 5 yards of the downriver calling station.
Don't buy it for this when you can buy it for that. And that goes for every one of these products that you see out there like this. Oh, the quality is just as good. I mean, we're talking about welded heat fusion technology. That's the best in the industry. You can buy 7 for this price, sell each one of them for that price, and keep one for yourself. In fact, they're the same quality from the same manufacturer that everybody across the world can buy from. You just put your brand on it. Oh, you would like to learn how? Would you like for me to show you how to do it? Personal one-on-one training? Would you like to know who the manufacturers are, their phone numbers, emails, contact information, even their sales agents? Ever since I've learned it, I've just had to spread the word. I wrote a book about it to help every one of you be able to get this or that.
I mean, walks right to the spot.
Wow.
And then now I kind of go into dad worrying for the family mode a little bit here, because now this thing's coming into camp. Jack's still asleep. All I could think of is some angry animal this big tripping up on lions from tents and stuff, and my son's still in bed, so now I'm kind of whispering to him. And then that's when this thing comes into camp, and he hears him shake the water off, and he's like, oh, and he comes stumbling out and turns the camera on, and here's a plug too for so the call and plan. Yeah. And just went crazy practicing calling, listening to videos, listening to your training, listening to Alaska Game and Fish has got a great moose sounds video out there. Use that with your training stuff and practiced it, every chance we got. And then the other thing that helped out a ton was the judging training there, Troy. Judging that thing. I felt real good with the space from his pedicle, and it being horizontal and being a little bit more of a mature. Felt real good with his paddles rolling back, And then last thing we did was we had a target 50 inches that we'd always have at the range with us, and got real good at measuring with the reticles. Problem was, though, this dude's too close. It's throwing off all my math and, all my little cards of gouge that I got on the rifle and measuring. And, I'm like, man. And I literally put my finger up and went, okay, that's between his eyes. There's 2 of those. There's 2.5. There's definitely more, But, man, I was worried. That's the first one. So I was a little worried and wanted to be 100% sure. So that's why I got Jack up, and yeah. The video is crazy long. It's like probably 5 minutes of him in camp.
It's 5 or 7 minutes of him in camp, and you can hear me and my dad just talking the whole time. And that was the only like bit of training I feel like we didn't do and should have was tried to judge in animals, but beneath 100 yards and beneath 50 yards. All the I feel like all the judging we did was for 100 or greater than that. So having them be that close, it was it just the adrenaline you're getting from that is insane. And just wanting to make critical decisions there, whether if we shoot or not. And then you get the whole worry of like, oh, is he going to walk away? What is he doing? He obviously they probably don't see too many people up there. So he was kind of relaxed, kind of just hanging out. And so it was awesome. We got to take our time and make the right call. And but yeah, judging them at 10 yards was a little difficult at first, but possible.
Good thing we did all that 200-yard shooting Felt like what? Well, I need a lever action something here. I mean, what am I doing with this rifle in my hand here?
He came right through the trees there, hopped into the water, swam across.
Right below the raft there.
Right below the raft.
It came up right here.
Came into there, was raking these trees right here.
Right behind camp.
As I crawled over to camp and told Jack, hey, don't move quick, there's a huge hole out here. I need help judging. And of course I didn't shoot him in the neck. Of course I didn't shoot him in the neck and just ran and jumped into the only lake around.
I woke up this morning to the sound of a bull grunt right behind camp. Came outside and he called him into camp not 10 yards away. I had a quick little session of judging whether he was legal. Took the shot and now he's piled up behind camp in a literal swamp.
About 50 yards from camp in a complete shithole.
So we're gathering gear up here, having coffee, and getting ready to go butcher this moose in about knee to waist deep water. So, welcome to the shit show.
Yeah, shoot him in the neck. Now we know. Oh well. Little over 60.
Big bull.
Yeah, most of the moose that I've harvested over the years are under 150 yards, and towards the last 15 years, I've called them all into camp. I tell everybody, don't hike too far away from your camp, because where you hike to and call from is most likely where you're going to call the bulls to, and that's going to be your pack job. So the further away you hike, that's going to be your pack job back. And you're going to do it 20 times, about 10, 15 times with, breaking apart that moose into quarters and manageable sizes, then packing it back. So don't hike too far away from camp, and certainly Fish and Game has it on the website. Don't go over a mile at all, because you don't have to. If you learn and take the time to call, you can call them right to you. I've called them right to the gravel bar. You can see the plane in the backdrop, and we've been there for days. It's just, and we just pack it. I've even pulled the plane right up to where we've harvested the bull, after processing and just loading them up. And I've done it with boats too, and my canoes, and back in my jet boat days. And so other than the ridge, which is really nice for people that aren't getting, you guys got flown in, but for me, even for you guys, it's nice to be up on a ridge and be able to look out or get some vantage point and see. Quite often you get to see the moose out there, even if they're not coming in. Just seeing them is going to brighten your spirits. Yeah, but you guys, heck, you called them. You didn't have to get up to the ridge. You got to just have them sign the guest book right in camp over a cup of coffee.
Yeah. And that leads into mistake number 2. And I think it's important for us to talk about our mistakes too. Proof is in the pudding in the end, but man, there's learning still getting there. And, shot placement, probably something to discuss more, but kind of lost my mind a little bit. This thing's big, he's close. And for some reason, I didn't take an X shot, and I shot him in the heart. Nipped the top of his heart off. Hindsight being 2020, real easy now to say, hey, shoot him in the neck, stun him, and kind of like how Jack did his.
Get him on the ground first, and then pit in the. Get him on the ground first, and then pit in the ones in the heart and lungs to get him to get him to bleed out.
I put 3 in him, and he goes 40 yards into the only little swamp around, and then dies in about 2 foot of water. And, in that little swamp behind the ridge there, thank goodness there's enough beavers that had a channel going back there. Recovered all 3 bullets in the offside hide. So that was cool. I got that next to my tag in the picture. But then now, now we're like, oh boy, what did we do here now? As we get the
and to give this channel a little bit more context, when this bull went running through, and when he went through the middle of the channel, he sank down and was like swimming across it for a couple seconds. So in the channel, it was 8 to 10 foot deep in some areas, and then it would bank up into like 2 or 3 foot of water, or depending on where the channel or where the willows and the grass was. So it wasn't this little like swamp area he went down in was it was no joke. It was a lot. It was definitely our I think our hardest butcher job ever. Just the size of the animal. First time, we've killed Shiras moose here in Colorado, but obviously walking up on the Yukon, there was still a noticeable difference in size, and to have them in the water was a cool experience. Getting the butcher and waders and do all that and get the raft in, and it really tested our skills. And I know we were both pretty nervous the whole time. Seeing the quality of the water and just knowing what was all going on. You can't see where you're putting your hands, can't see where you're putting your knife. And you have to go underneath the water to cut something, and it was quite the experience getting him out of there. But we got it done with minimal meat loss, so it was pretty impressive. Here's your in-the-field update with Jack Kelly. Horns in the boat, front quarter in the boat, and the rest of them is kind of sinking. Swamp donkey for sure.
That was the biggest thing, just showing justice to the animal and respecting the tag and the animal in the process. Is what had us getting this thing apart in the biggest chunks we could. And thank goodness we had the rafts, because once we got, we lopped them off at the neck, got a quarter off on a front off, rear off on the same side, and then
got the rib cage off.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you've seen the videos yet, Troy, but we floated them with the big raft. So picture a half a moose, spine, hide, and everything on that whole side. We got a bunch of ratchet straps and got underneath them in the mud, and then floated them up just enough that with Jack balancing on the other side of the raft like an outrigger, we got him out into the main river, and then got him back up to camp and got him in about 2 inches of water. And then we were like, okay, cool. Now we're good.
I got him out of the swamp, got him to the river, so we ended up tying him to the boat and we had to pull him all the way out. He was back in here. It was camp from where we shot him. He was standing about there when we shot. He crossed from the river over here, went beneath that log, came up on the other side of the bank here, walked around, raked some trees, and grunted all through here when we were trying to judge him. I think he was standing somewhere in here when we shot. There's camp. And here he lies. There's a heart. Beautiful reference. Alaskan giant. Thank you, big boy.
No, that's smart. I mean, there's a lot of ingenuity that you just self-taught, common sense to do what you did, and that happens when you're hunting. You just kind of make do with what you got, and get them into some shallower water, and maybe get a quarter off and start lightening the load, and then you can lift them over into more manageable position. For people that are listening here that lower 48 elk hunters and deer hunters, you don't often get a chance to flip an entire moose over upside down like you do when you're gutting out an elk or a deer and have that easy processing. They're laying on their side. They're as big as a horse. You're not going to quite often flip them over on their back, especially when you throw in 50, 60, 70 inch moose antlers. It's not going. You're going to have to learn how to process them laying on their side. And
everything we touched weighed 100 pounds. It's like everything
Every bag.
was 100 pounds.
Were you
At the end of the
blown
trip,
away-
the coffee pot was 100 pounds. It felt like.
Were you amazed how thick their hide is? I mean, it's a half an inch thick.
Yeah.
On most of the areas of a moose, it's half an inch. Maybe not the belly, but the sides are half an inch. I'm always blown away when I process a moose because of that.
Yeah, the thinnest part of the hide was as thick as my thumb or forefinger. You know, that was the thinnest part. And you know, we had a lot of our friends. I can't believe you didn't bring the cape. Can't believe you didn't do this. You know, and Jack and I were like, here to tell you,
The weight on that would have been insane.
You know,
Couldn't imagine what it'd be like to pull out a cape.
So here's a knife that I use, and you can see it with the big gut hook on it. Gary Bolduck actually made it for me, but that hook, as you can see, I can put my middle finger into that hook.
yeah, exactly.
That's how thick that hook is, and that still is tough to use as a gut hook as you're pulling it up around. I mean, it's good for the gut hook, but if I'm going to go up the side of the shoulder, even that isn't a big enough curve to fit in around the thickness of a moose hide.
Yeah. It was you know, it was an effort, you know, to get them all out and then get them back to our gravel bar. You know, it was a 12-hour evolution of getting them on racks.
It was a full 12 hours at work there.
And he's only a couple hundred yards at the most behind camp.
Oh yeah, maybe
not
120
even
yards at the most. Yeah.
And it
Not
took
even
you that
100
long.
The float, I had to pull him all the way out. He was back in here. It was camp from where we shot him. He was standing about there when we shot. He crossed from the river over here, went beneath that log, came up on the other side of the bank here, walked around, raped some trees and grunted all through here when we were trying to judge him. I think he was standing somewhere in here when we shot. There's camp. And here he lies.
Wow. Yeah, people just don't realize it.
Oh, no. And you know, mistake kind of number 3, we did not eat and hydrate during the day enough. We were so concerned with respecting the animal and respecting the meat.
We just excited too, you know. We couldn't stop.
We didn't take care of ourselves that day. And, you know, finally get them on the rack, Troy. And you got a couple of videos and pictures of him sitting on the shoreline. And then same thing we do in elk camp. We're tenderloins and garlic that evening. So I'm thankful to be sitting down I'll let Jack take it over from here, but I'm thankful to be sitting down and I'm worn out. I can't remember hunting or fishing trip and being this worn out at the end of the day. And I just want to cook some meat. So I'm cooking up tenderloins. And hydrating with some garlic and olive oil we brought in. And I'll let Jack take it here from now it gets into the...
I take just a time out from the show, which I hope you're enjoying, to tell you about something really special. It's called the Alaska Inner Circle. It's our mastermind club built for serious hunters wishing to come to Alaska and hunt. Now, we talk about access to moose hunting strategies, weekly Q&A sessions, field dressing and transport options that I address, gear and preparation, essential gear, live events. In the Inner Circle, we talk about navigating complex regulations, logistical challenges. When you join the Alaska Inner Circle Mastermind Club, it's an exclusive community. You get moose hunting strategies, Alaska fishing game updates, member spotlights and event information. You get advanced hunting tips from serious hunters, not just me, but other hunters that I have handpicked to bring in that also live in Alaska. These are people that have hunted it their whole lives. I've been up there for over 30 years, and I came up in the Air Force. I'm going to personally come on daily, if not, and for sure weekly, and answer a bunch of questions, as well as the other moderators I'm going to bring on that live in Alaska. They're getting it done. Some of the bonuses that you get is I got moose calling techniques I'm going to put in there. I'm throwing in one of my checklists, navigating moose hunting habitats, constant Q&A sessions. I'm going to be giving these live events that you'll be getting notified as a member. Why is it a paid community? And I've talked about it. It's to keep serious hunters in one location. It's to keep out the riprap, young kids from spouting off, sponsorships out. Who is the Alaska Inner Circle Mastermind Club for? And it's for serious people, like-minded individuals that are hunting or coming to hunt Alaska, and they want the real nuts and bolts on what to do, really. Is additional support available? Yes, I'm going to have moderators on here that are also going to be able to answer your questions, as well as myself. I paid for the community. We all pay for this community, and we all bring value to the club. We are all very serious hunters, and we are talking about Alaska. Upon joining, you'll receive a login to our secured member portal. This is your hub for webinars, courses, forums, and exclusive content available 24/7. Click the link below in the bio or in the first comment section, and we will see you.
7:30, I think, is when I have the first pictures of us, like sitting in camp, waders off, like getting dry. That was another thing. That's the longest I've ever worn waders in my whole life. The Sims waders that we had were incredible. Obviously can't make that hunt possible without, I think, a full chest waders. But to finally have taken off the waders for that day, I remember that feeling being a little bit extra great. We'd sit down, I take pictures of the river and the moose out on the rack, and that's about 7:30, maybe 7:40-ish. We start actually eating. I got videos of him cooking tenderloin, garlic, and got mashed potatoes and some tortillas, and it's become famous now. Mashed potato tenderloin taco. Literally sat there and made the first one. Heated up a tortilla, put a little olive oil and garlic on it, and put a little layer of mashed potatoes, and then took some of that fresh moose tenderloin and started eating that. I mean, that was. I don't think it can get much better than that. That being that fresh, being out in the woods, and I mean, I've made these tacos with elk tenderloin, with deer tenderloin, or with heart, and I've done it with even grouse now too. It's kind of become an obsession, and everyone, I'll when I go snowboarding or skiing in the lots and whatnot, when we're cooking for lunch, I'll even make those, and it's always something special to bring around. But man, I think I got through 2 bites on the first taco, and all of a sudden I hear this just absolutely huge crash and crack of branches across the river, and all I do is look up and look over where I heard the sound, and there was like 2 or 3 seconds where I couldn't even say a single word, because this other bull steps out, and he's along the bank already, walking to
third bull.
Is
this the third bull? Second bull.
Second bull. Yep.
Oh, okay.
The second bull we've seen the whole trip. And he's just walking out. Before we had actually sat down to eat dinner, my dad jokingly, he was laughing doing it, jokingly made a cow call. Wasn't even like a real expert cow call. He just was happy to have. We had our the tube that we had, the calling tube that we had was from Quebec, from my Uncle Donnie and from my Uncle Dale, and they've actually killed moose with it from themselves up in Quebec. So
Make sure you send me a picture of that.
We'll do, yeah. So to have that in Alaska, calling it, my dad was just happy to have it in his hands and blowing a call through it. So he did one extra call, and I'm sure that's what brought that bull in. That last little bit of distance, he probably would have seen him the next morning, on the next set of calling. But I think that one little call is what brought him in, just that last little bit of distance while we were eating. And, just like my dad's bull, see him on the other side of the river, and the next thing you know, he's swimming across and is up on a gravel bar 60, 70 yards, and in that time he's swimming across, I'm wearing slippers, so I'm trying to put down a taco and grab a rifle and grab ammunition and load the gun the whole time he's, I'm all jacked up excited because, in this bull you could visibly see he's got legal brows. He's 4 on 4 or 4, and then these 2 huge hooks, on his right side, and
There's just no guessing with this second
yeah, after seeing my dad's bull, there was no
Thank goodness.
guessing that he was a
It
shooter.
was like, there's no doubt that one's legal. And I say to Jack, you get him on dry land and shoot him in the neck until he's down, please.
And so we thought he was gonna like start walking up the gravel bar like down river, but he ended up going straight up off the river and like kind of like 5-10 yards into like the willows there, and he just started raking, and so I snuck in on him. It was probably about 40-50 yards when I took that first crack on him, and I had to sit there and take a little time to judge where, like, okay, what am I shooting at here? Okay, I need to hit high. I need to hit him in the neck. Make sure I'm not too high in the neck, because after cutting on my dad's bull, you got this. I got to visually see how much meat is on top of his neck. So if you took a too high of a neck shot, you're sending right through meat, not hitting the vertebrae at all. And so I remember having him in the scope, and I'd see his antlers, and I'd follow back from his pedicle. I'd see ear, see top of the neck, and then move down. And, but he was moving the whole time, and I really wanted to make sure this first shot was good. And so I just really took the time of figuring out, okay, what's he doing? Oh, got your head here. I see your neck like this when your head's like this. And thankfully he gave us the time to do that. He was busy grunting and breaking a tree, and I put the first shot in him, and he like walks 10 more yards into the brush. And this is where another worried dad moment comes in, and a little gung ho son action. I start kind of chasing after him into the woods, into the thicket, and he, hindsight, probably not the smartest idea. 135-pound man versus 2,000-pound animal and close quarters.
You don't do that. This is bow hunting 101. Stick it to him and then let him go lay down and then bleed out.
Yeah, I was a little unsmart there, but I end up getting another like shooting window through the brush in at him, and that's I was able to anchor him down. Put 2 more in the neck, put 2 more in the lungs, just to get him, or once he was down, to get him to help bleed out quicker and die quicker. And,
so to kind of recap, your first shot didn't hit the bone, obviously.
Well, I think it did. I think it did hit where it needed to be, but he didn't. It wasn't like a big dropping shot. I think maybe our 280 Ackley's for that neck shot a little light, so it's it's hitting where it needed to be, but it's not carrying that like knockdown linebacker energy.
What grain of bullet were you shooting again?
So 180 or 175, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, I tell everybody that nothing less than 180 for me has been a real good grain to start off with. 190, 200s. I'm 180, 190 kind of guy, but just FYI to everybody listening.
I think that's something else to interject here real quick is bullet selection. The quality bullets that are out there nowadays, a big difference from 20, 25 years ago, where everybody just shot a Sierra Game King at everything. I don't think, hindsight being 2020, I don't think we had the correct bullet. We were shooting Akibon long ranges because I'm thinking maybe I want a 300-ish, and I want good performance with the low min velocity that those provided. Now rethinking it, and we should have had nozzler partitions in there or something like that. More of a Thor's hammer type of thing, and a little bit less on the ballistic coefficient aerodynamic mindset, because the shot were, the bullets perform like they should, a premium bullet should, but we were well inside min range and way over, max velocity for those things. But they perform well, so give them a plug for that.
But again, at the end of the day, if you're a sniper, shot placement trumps, I think, big caliber. It is nice to know that you can knock them down before they want to run into the bog or the river.
Right.
For me, you guys were talking about knock them down first, and then punch them in the boiler room. I like to punch them in the boiler room. Again, now we're in a different scenario where you're 10 yards from camp and the bull could charge you. I mean, bull moose are dangerous. And I think at that point it would have been going for a knockdown myself. I've been there before and I didn't. I did. I actually did in the podcast with Butch. Both of us shot him right behind the ear and knocked him down, just lights out. That next shot needs to be, do your best to drop them with the next shot or shoulder shot. Put them, anchor them, because they get into that water. You guys know that's a big chore.
Whole nother ball game after that. Yeah.
And then the fun is over at that point, and the work begins because they're big as a horse.
And back to when we're cooking, when Jack's bull walked out, my first thought was like, you gotta be kidding me. We got another 12 hours of butchering to take care of this animal again right now. I'm like, God dang.
Almost
Same
I
time
almost
too.
didn't want to shoot another. I almost didn't want to shoot another bull, but you can't pass that up.
That quickly got out of our heads, though. Yeah, we were like, hey, this is what we came here for. Who cares? Shoot that dang thing. And we butchered for 7 hours that night until it got to the point I didn't feel like we could keep us safe.
Yeah. But
felt like our situational awareness. Yeah, felt like my situational awareness of constantly looking over our shoulder, with the headlamps, So we got him. We got his bull, half of them done, and then drug the guts away, and then covered up the gut pile with the hide to kind of keep the scent down overnight. Because it was only like 60 yards from the tent. Good thing it was good and cold though. Felt kind of okay because just seen some black bear sign around, and that was it. That was a little bit of survival kind of thinking there of like, let's just cover up the gut pile overnight, get some sleep, get some light back on it, and then we finish them up then the next day.
All right. So at this point, you guys are worried about bears.
Yeah. And, first time a gravel bar hunt where the camp was on the gravel bar. Mm-hmm. So kind of liking that whole program of being able to make a nice meat rack right next to the water, away from camp, keeping it cool. Even regardless of what we're hunting, man, our focus is respect to the animal and care of the meat first over everything else. So the ability to make a nice, very Gucci-like rack, right on the edge of the water and the breeze going and everything. We really got that nice crust, nice. We used your bags, and those handles were a lifesaver,
Yeah. I was going to ask you, with these big pack jobs or that one, how nice was it to have handles?
Man, I didn't realize how bad we were missing those things on everything else we've packed out,
Yeah.
I mean, I want those now on everything.
Yeah, I mean, with the weight of the moose, especially the hind quarters, or even, we used a couple of your bags to put the ribs in, and I mean, it was almost impossible. I think, especially with the rears, like to even try and get your hands around it and try and pick that up, would be like a Bulgarian squat or a lift or something that probably just hurt your back out there, So having those handles, I mean, that was a huge difference. I'd almost say it's impossible to move around a rear moose quarter without those handles.
I've done it where you got to throw 120 pounds over the top of your shoulders and through the tundra, and hopefully you don't twist a knee somewhere or an ankle. And I seriously went 20 years without handles, and I was like, is someone ever going to come out with handles here so two of us can grab this bag effectively?
Oh, every time I grabbed it, Troy, I was like, why in the heck did we not think of this? I mean, as many game bags we picked up, and, the front quarters, nice and easy and everything. But usually, deer, nice. But we elk hunt and moose hunt a lot. And like every time I put my hand on it, I was like, why the heck didn't, yeah, man, why didn't someone think of this? Why didn't we think of this?
I tell people, I go, it's like putting wheels on the bottom of your suitcases.
Yeah.
You don't have to carry it into the airport.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
That
So we spend another day then taking care of the meat. I got a meat thermometer in my kill kit, so we're able to check them, make sure they cooled down right quick, and the core temperatures were fine. And then next morning we loaded up for the big 30-ish mile float down river, and that was also an experience. I think we steelhead fish West Coast. Don't have a lot of time on the sticks, but a little bit of time, and whole big difference loaded up that heavy in a raft.
How do those rafts perform with that? I mean, you're looking at least 700 pounds of moose itself.
I can't believe how much we got in the big raft, be honest with you.
Most of the guys get 2 moose and 1 guy in there. That's about 1,800 pounds.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. I think we put a forward, the rear, and the ribs on jacks, and then I took the small one, and then I took the camp and the other 2, and then probably 1 or 2 times I should have cranked up the motor, but we were into this enjoying the ride little thing here going
That's
on
how I
now.
am.
That's
exactly how I am.
My lesson learned was I probably, that's a lot of weight, and if you are just in the wrong slot, that can real quickly turn into a mess. And
you mean if you come around the corner and you run into a sweeper or something like that?
Yeah. So I probably, hindsight being 2020, I would have had the motor running at least in the water to cool down, not necessarily down the whole way. That way, when I got to a spot where probably should have motored through instead of trying to paddle in through, but the rafts performed awesome. The tie rings were in the right spots too, and the ability to have the hard seat, is a huge thing. Staying up high and having the hard seat.
I love that. Those lightweight aluminum seats. I mean, I've been on other rafts that have the netting, and they're fine, and it serves a purpose, and they're lightweight. But with these, the aluminum seats are so light, and then the testing, when I was testing them out, I'm like, and then you can adjust them. I just thought this is a necessity. It's a must-have.
And the key is, like you're saying, staying high too on the raft, and be able to see what the heck's going on, So we floated down. We decided to deviate from the plan a little bit because we were a little adventurous. So instead of going to the primary takeout lake, we went to another lake and had a blast. We took a small creek to another lake, and never saw so many beaver dams in our life. It was an awesome experience, and it took us all day. We left at like 8, 9 in the morning, and we ended up pulling up short because we couldn't get over one last beaver dam. So now, pulled out the Onyx, and now we got a intermediary camp to set up and a 300-yard hump of 2 moose, the rafts, and the
muskeg and the tundra.
It wasn't too bad in that area. It was a little more willows and aspens up there, or birch. I mean,
so solid ground.
Yeah, so we were able to find some solid ground to walk across. And had
excellent.
But thousands and thousands of blueberries around the pick and keep you going while you're walking. So
we sent you that picture too of Jack holding blueberries in the morning in our intermediary camp there. Holding a big, I was like, how cool would it be to take a picture of you filled that whole thing up with blueberries? And 2 hours later, he come back full of blueberries.
People don't realize that. There's a lot of blueberries in Alaska on that muskeg out across the tundra. Bears are out there eating in the wide open tundra, and you're thinking, what are they eating? It's all tundra. And it's, I want you to envision calling in a giant bull moose. and having that bull respond to you by looking right at your call, looking right at you after you called, maybe a nice cow call, and those big, huge antlers looking at you, and then here he comes like he's on a tether cord, and the feeling that you're going to have. Next thing you know, your heartbeat is pounding harder, you're breathing harder, and the adrenaline is pumping. Now, for me, that happens every single year. I call in moose like I did my friends here, calling in this giant bull moose at Caribou Lake and bringing in the bull. And then I'd grab the camera and film my friends shooting the bull. Or how about here, we're up on a ridge, at Trophy Ridge, matter of fact. I called in this giant bull from a mile away. He stands up, and here he comes on a tether cord. I grab the camera again, and I filmed my buddy Jeff harvest his first giant bull moose. That bull ended up being 71.5 inches, and Jeff had never even taken a bull over 40. Or how about my other friend here? I called in this giant 60-inch bull moose to my friend, grabbed the camera, and I start filming here. This can be you. You can take 30 years of my experience and learn how to do this in a matter of 4 or 5 hours. Or how about the moose I called in for Lat Durance of Best of the West? We're on top of this ridge. I lay out a bunch of cow calls, and I'm calling this bull in. I'm grabbing the camera, I'm filming, dropping the camera, calling some more, and then I pick up the camera and I film Lat Durance from Best of the West take this ginormous 65-inch bull moose down on the river bottom there from vantage point up above, all from calling. That's all I did. Called. I am going to be giving free online training courses to the first 20 people who click the link below and fill out the registration form, and 20 of you are going to get that for free. I can't wait to see you all in here. This is my first ever live moose hunting training courses Q&A program where I'm going to answer a lot of questions for all of you people. Hit the link below or in the description or even in the comment section. This is pretty neat. I think you're going to love it. 14, 18 inches wide. I'm going to pick it up. Try to. What do you think of that? Now that's a bull. Blueberries on my hunts, it's bonus.
Yeah. That was probably one of the
cream?
best things about being up there, because we find some wild raspberries or wild strawberries or some choke cherries or huckleberries if you're lucky here in Colorado. But I mean, the berries up there were something else. I mean, they were everywhere, all fresh, all plump, and they're.
Only saw one big black bear scat, the biggest I've ever seen in my life. And I said to Jack, I'm like, that's the biggest black bear scat we've ever seen. And that was full of berries and, all kind of other hairs and stuff like that. But what was cool too at the takeout lake, Troy, so we called in 2 Arctic swans one day.
Called them in? How'd you do that?
I started honking at them. We goose hunt a lot, waterfowl hunt a lot. So, we heard them every morning taking off and honking around us. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to honk at them and see. I'll be darned if them things came right to us and low past us twice to see where the noise was coming from.
Did you video that?
No, we didn't.
We didn't. We didn't expect them that they were going to come actually flying around. We were more just screwing around.
They came at us twice.
Trying to mimic them,
That
actually worked.
At the takeout lake, widgeon everywhere, like we never seen widgeon everywhere, and we were like, how the heck? And then what was the other? Oh, and then loons. So at the takeout lake, hearing loons, hearing wolves at night. No wolves while we were hunting. We heard wolves 30 miles downriver, but every night, loon, swans, wolf, and widgeon all around us with all them blueberries. I mean, they couldn't ask for more. We were kind of just sitting there in amazement around the fire in the evening.
Isn't that? Oh my gosh! Isn't that a special place? I mean, it doesn't get more wild than that location.
And you made a good point there about the videoing thing. Man, our video game was terrible. We just didn't know how hard that was going to be. So I want to add that in the preparation and testing and planning before, like I could have gotten Jack's all on video, but I didn't know I grabbed Jack's iPhone, and I'm Android, and I had my hand over his microphone. It's making all this scratchy noise, and just
Yeah.
we could have done so much more, but same old thing. Don't know what you know until you know it.
You learn as you go along, and the biggest thing, the big takeout I can give anybody listening is, if your phone is somewhere it's hard to reach in your backpack, you're not going to use it. You're not going to get near as much footage. Carry a chest pack that you can either put around your shoulders or you clip it to your backpack. Quite often I have a backpack frame and I just carry it wherever I go while I'm hunting, because I want to have that pack right there. But in all of my hunts and that I'm on, I have that, and I have my camera in there, my phone's in there, even a mic system. I got spare shells in that thing. I got, usually a pocket with some candy bars and stuff. But if it's right here, or where you can just grab it right there as you're hiking, hunting, scouting, you're going to get more footage, and you're going to be happy you did it, and more pictures because it's right there in front of you.
So we're still pretty green in our videography portion of all of our hunts, but obviously we're getting more into it, and looking to hopefully get us some GoPros or some other backcountry camera equipment here to hopefully not only film some of my own journeys of snowboarding and fishing and whatnot in the high country during the summer and winters, but also for our Alaska trips too. So we'll hopefully get better and better over the years here.
There's some pretty neat equipment out there, and quite honestly, guys, you really don't need anything over an iPhone 4K camera. And getting something as simple as a microphone, like I have these right here. You can see that it plugs into the bottom of the iPhone, and then this right here is your microphone. It's wireless, and you just clip it on once it's on the phone, and this thing goes solid. It's not hooked up, and you've got the best audio you could possibly want. It is. I mean, I got the lavaliers, the wired lavaliers. And you got to tuck them down the middle back of your shirt and hang them around. You'll see them on people, and they clip on. But that's easy to do, something to think about. But, your phone is all you need for incredible footage. It's 4K or better.
Yeah.
You got any more moose meat left, or did you eat it all?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I ate the last.
He's got some left. I don't. I went a little crazy this past year eating it. I mean, I enjoyed every single bit of it, and I tried my best to always cook it for whenever I had people around and whatnot. It was something special to be shared. And
I just had the last tenderloin piece I had the other day. We made a Korean barbecue and rice and vegetables out of it, and every piece was rock star. And just like our Shirish moose down here, those Yukon moose up there, even like the rear rounds, those big roasts, really tender, So you hear these stories about people crock pot and everything. Here's my plug for, man, you ain't have to. You don't have to at all. You can stake up that whole dang thing, and the toughest pieces were like a sirloin even.
So for everybody, you're kind of blowing that myth out of the water of them big old bowls being tough and raunchy eating. You're saying they're not so.
They were every cut of meat we got off it was tender, in my opinion. If it was, everything was awesome off them.
Well, excellent, guys. It sounded like you had an incredible hunt and 100% success. You got to experience the best Alaska has. The serenity, the magnitude of being in true wilderness and realizing it's a lot different up there.
Yeah, it was awesome.
There's no hiking trails or ATV trails or off-road roads anywhere where you went. Yeah, to as a bush pilot, for every 15 minutes of flight, we actually say it'll take you 2 weeks to hike across that marshy tundra.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I'd say that's true.
Let's give a shout out to any of the products or brands that you really enjoyed on this hunt, if you got any.
Yeah. So, Jack, you want to go first?
Sure. I'd say the Sims G3 waders. That hunt. I mean, that's the most time I've ever spent in waders. even when they were wet, I was able to put them on with had first light undergarments, the long johns, long t-shirt, long sleeve shirts, their all their thermal stuff. I was able to do that, and then wear our QU vest or QU jackets or QU pants underneath that too, and even throwing on wet waders. I was warm the whole time. I think that for me that was really, really key and crucial. Just the clothes we were wearing. I think my dad had some stuff from Kafaru, but mostly I think we were running QU or first light gear, and that makes a huge difference. I think.
I really
Other than
like
that,
the tents that you had too. What kind of tents were those?
Yeah, so we ran
let my dad take that.
We ran a Seek Outside Red Cliff is what Jack and I slept in. So plenty of room to get 2 guys in low cots and pads. And then plenty of room to get the gear and the packs in there too. The stuff that didn't have a scent on it inside.
Right.
And then ran a little non-standard. I like the Winterwell titanium stove because it folds up more like a laptop, and it has a lot less pieces to lose. No bolts, no screws, no nuts or nothing. All solid titanium. And then a plug for anyone that's going up there. Anybody that's going up there with stocking foot waders, spend the extra money on good boots because we lived in them boots and hiked in them boots a lot, And then last 2 plugs, or last 3 plugs, Troy, your bags and the rafts were utterly perfect. And each time we used them, we were like, man, you talk about the right tool for the job, every time. And that's the truth. That just ain't me plugging it because it's your podcast either. I want to do handles on my elk bags now. I want to raft like that down in Colorado for when we go up into our high mountain lakes, Last 2 plugs, Montana Knife Company. We use their bear tooth skinner on those moose. And there's a picture we sent to you. Jack's on his back with the front quarter in the air like this, and he's holding that Montana Knife Company bear tooth skinner. Just the idea of being able to make a nice big cut with a true skin and blade. It's an actual fleshing blade, but we use it to skin. Took care of the meat real nice and no waste, and it just came apart easy. And then last plug, something that kind of wrapped it all up. It took all your planning and training. Was the guys over there at Northern Hunter Podcast. Ever since they cranked up over there, Troy, we didn't talk about this before. This is the first time. Ever since they cranked up, we've been listening to them, and to tie in weekly into one of their stories, into our planning and into your training, it kind of made the triad for a good base, solid plan, and I don't know how many notes I got, that went back and forth, and we're like, "Ooh, let me look at that. Let me look at that."
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up. The Northern Hunter is an excellent podcast group. If you want to follow them, they are locals as well, and they are getting it done. They hunt. They live there in Fairbanks as well, and I know James personally. I've done a couple podcasts with them now. They're the real deal. They're energetic. They all have great voices, good energy, and you're going to learn a lot from them. What do you tell somebody right now that already has a set of bags that doesn't have the handle in it? Why should they go and get our bag with handles, which we're the only ones that can have them? We're patented.
Just the ease of being able to carry stuff with 2 people, the ease of being able to maneuver the bag around once the meat's in it. It just, once you start getting up to that weight of a moose, or if someone struggles, moving an elk quarter around, that helps tremendously. Amount those handles with the moose quarters, it's almost impossible to I think move them around without them. And just for anyone that struggles with the elk quarters as well, those handles would make a huge difference for them as well if they struggle with that.
What'd you think about the double drawstring? Did you like that, or?
Yeah, the The double drawstring was nice because we were then able to tie it to each other there.
You know, and something else to think of too, when you're grabbing, you know, everybody out there that grabs a game bag, you know, if you're not grabbing it on the drawstring side in a loop, you're grabbing it on the other side. What are you doing? You're grabbing and trying to twist something to hold on to. Well, with that handle there's nothing. So that meat can get the whole way in the bottom of the bag. You know, you can wrap it up, and you know, it reminded me of in a butcher shop where they got the meat hooks, you know, and they stick a meat hook into a rear, and now you got this handle to lift the rear around, you know. So it's a game changer and easier, you know, because you're fighting the tundra and the willows and the water.
Wherever you go hunting for moose or whoever else with, it's going to be incredible, and I'm glad that I was able to help you guys. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, and keep in touch, okay? And I need all those pictures.
Will do.